The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shades thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us.
Blue, purple, everybody knows it's a fucking purple.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. That's right. It is Monday, January 1st, and today is National Bloody Mary Day, National Hangover Day, National Thank God It's Monday. Oh, man. And, of course, that's right, you guys. It is New Year's Day. Thank you for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look down below on your screen to see where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, Facebook, and Instagram. So welcome to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms. But kicking it off, that's right, we have Too Cool for School today. What is going on with that cut? You look like you just rolled out of bed. Got the sleepy seeds in the eyes? Jason? Yeah, that's right. With the bedhead, the dope dad himself, it is none other than Mr. Rico Lamitte.
Yeah. Y'all know what time it is. It's time for these newses.
Yes, we moved into our new studio. What do you think about this? How do you think this looks?
I like that, Jason. Was that like, it's like half, like dungeon, half InfoWars?
Oh.
I'm all for it. So, as we close the doors on 2023, the year of Jordan, mark our official entry into 2024, or as some might call it, the year of Kobe. One thing's for certain, new cannabis laws will be taking effect in several states across the U.S. From employment protections to packaging requirements, we've got the scoop. Scoop directly from Marijuana Moments, Kyle Yeager, that is, per the article. As of today, Monday, new legislation will be affecting at least 5 states, and of a big 2023 legislative session that saw major changes to marijuana laws throughout the country. Advocates are already gearing up for a fresh push to expand on reform achievements in 2024, but consumers, regulators, and stakeholders should also be mindful of the changes that are being implemented at the start of the year. Here's a rundown of the laws that will take effect today. California and Washington State implement cannabis-related workplace protections under 2 pieces of legislation signed into law in 2022 and 2023. California employers are now prohibited from asking job applicants about past cannabis use, and most are barred from penalizing employees over lawful use of marijuana outside of the... Can I give applause for that, please? Please.
There we go.
Yes. Let me bring up old shit. With certain exceptions, it is unlawful for an employer to request information from an applicant or employment relating to the applicant's prior use of cannabis. The separate complementary legislation that Governor Gavin Newsom signed in 2022 says it's unlawful for employees to discriminate against a person in hiring, termination, or any term or condition of employment or otherwise penalizing a person if discrimination is based upon off-duty marijuana use or drug tests that reveal cannabinoid metabolites. It's Washington's legislation is limited to job applicants, but Governor Jay Inslee noted before signing employers would still be able to maintain drug-free workplaces or prohibit the use of cannabis by workers after they are hired. Nevada's possession limit more than doubles as businesses expand operations effective Monday. The marijuana possession limit for adults in Nevada will more than double to 2.5 ounces. The recreational retailers become authorized to serve medical cannabis patients as well without a separate license. Can we get a round of applause for Nevada, please? Round of applause. They're coming into the future. Yes. All this liberalized laws, Jason, you gotta love it. You gotta love it.
So far they sound within reason.
Within reason.
So far.
Sure. So far. Also makes it so adult use marijuana retail will no longer have to separate medical cannabis license to serve patients. Recreational retailers will automatically serve as licenses. So, more money for them. I can't help but wonder if the medical only place is just gonna be going out of business now. I guess it's more businesses for Planet 13 to gobble up.
Mm-hmm. Go Larry.
Shout out to Larry. Moving to my home state, Virginia. Virginia gets new marijuana regulatory body. Virginia lawmakers weren't able to pass on an implementation bill to provide for regulated recreational marijuana sales by the new year, as advocates had hoped. But newly effective legislation does shift regulatory responsibility for the existing medical cannabis program to the Virginia Cannabis Control Authority, the CCA. The establishment of the CCA was required under 2021 legislation under former Democratic governor of Northam, but we all know the story how Glenn Youngkin came in there and messed up everything. And now that they have both of the sides of the Virginia government on the Democratic side, maybe they'll get it right this time. Colorado marijuana must be labeled with use by date. I like that one, man. No more of that stale weed out there in Rockies. As of Monday, cannabis products in Colorado must feature use-by dates indicating that the items are best if consumed in 9 months being packaged. The policy change put forward by regulators in 2022 and year to adopt new standards. Stakeholders have successfully pushed back on an initial proposal from the Colorado Marijuana Enforcement Division require a more limited month use-by date. What do you think about that? The new rule comes into effect on the 10th anniversary of the nation's first legal adult use marijuana sales in Colorado on January 1st, 2014. And then finally, Oklahoma. Oklahoma's cannabis industry sees multiple regulatory updates. Several new laws take effect in Oklahoma on Monday to affect the state's medical marijuana market. That includes one measure that authorized Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority, the OMMA, or OMA, to hire secret shoppers that can discreetly carry out oversight activities such as investigating regulatory compliance at cannabis businesses and providing samples from dispensaries to quality assurance. Watch out, Oklahomans. They got the snitches out there and they're getting paid by the state. So this is Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street. And yes, happy New Year, everybody. I hope you guys abide by the new cannabis laws. And if not, you guys know the trap will always win.
So true,
to you, Jason.
So true, Rico. The trap is always going to win, and I think all these laws sound within reason for the most part. I think it's going to end up benefiting patients, benefiting the cannabis community overall. So far, they all sound crazy, or don't sound crazy. Yeah.
New law list.
I'm kind of in a yes but mood, and here's my yes. While I agree that we want the freshest cannabis product, I have challenges with this 9-month cliff in Colorado because, for example, if I manufactured gelatin gummy and the primary ingredients were gelatin, sugar, and distillate, I don't know why there's a 9-month cliff for that product to be sold. I think that the expiration of product should be based on what type of product it is and not just a flavor. And that means that you're compressing the supply chain and the amount of time that we can go from manufacturing to distribution, retail, and to sales. And I haven't heard a compelling public policy reason why 6 months in Colorado is the cutoff for a gummy. I've heard of a product recall where a gummy that was 6 months and 1 day old was consumed, and somehow something terrible happened to the consumer / end user. So I just do think that while it appears reasonable on its face, this is, to me, an example of overregulation, because if the manufacturer is able, consumers can choose through their purchases and their purchasing behavior how much emphasis they want to put on the freshness of all cannabis products.
Yeah.
So you're saying there should be a cutout for certain less than perishable items?
It just doesn't make any sense. It's not based on science, and it's not based on some compelling public need.
Hey, you know what, Yarrow, you have some good points there. I'm not mad at that. Not mad at that coming back. That does make a lot of sense. 6 months, I agree with you. Like there's candy that you purchase in the store that has gelatin that sits on the shelf for probably like a year and a half at a time. It's like weed in New York.
That's not funny because it's fun.
It's not funny when it's true, huh? It's not funny when it's true.
That's of truthiness.
Yes.
But the thing that just comes up for me is, show me why we need this. Show me what the killing argument was, and show me the science and data behind a 6 month cliff for a sugar-based edible. And if you can't show me any of that, tell me why we need more regulation.
I know why, Reek. I know why, Yarrow. Because I don't know if you've been watching the trends, but there has been a major uptick of the Karen population entering Colorado.
No, they really have. They drove Lauren Boebert into a new district.
Oh, that's good.
I know a lot of other places we could drive her as well, but let's not get too political too soon, too early this morning.
Why not, bro?
Again,
it's the first of the year.
Colorado's a very mature market.
Is that what you call that? That's what you call that, a mature market, huh? Interesting.
Yeah, mature market, and this doesn't seem like it's an incredibly data-driven policy.
Mm-hmm.
I like going for mature search sometimes, so switch it.
Mm-hmm. You have any thoughts on this, Chris? What do you think about these born-on dates?
I was just looking at the gummies that I have right now. It's got a manufacturer date, purchased in California. It's got a best before date, which is 12 months out. So I agree with the comments here that, what's the data behind, this arbitrary 6 months? And I think, I don't have the answer. I don't produce right. Somebody with the knowledge that understands, what best practices are, absolutely should be chime in and have a say here. And I'm sure, like a lot of laws, people who actually know the answer were not consulted, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
let the market decide.
The
market. If a consumer comes in and goes, I really need that new gummy, but because sometimes when you get red vines, you can tell when they get a little older out of it, right? Let the market decide. Let the consumer, with that transparency around manufacturing date, allow their purchasing power to dictate how long a gummy stays on the shelf if that gummy doesn't have perishable products in it.
To play devil's advocate, some people like old dusty bottle of weed that's been for 2 years.
So ratchet, bro. So ratchet. Yarrow, that brings up a good point. I think the only ingredient that it differs from traditional gummies to cannabis gummies is going to be cannabis distillate. So I'm really excited that I got a new wrinkle in my brain now, because I just learned that cannabis distillate expires after 6 months, apparently.
What we do know is that it doesn't, and single-digit degradation to potency.
Mm-hmm.
And beyond that, what the cannabis industry has been screaming for as long as the cannabis industry has had the ability to scream, is this notion that it should be like any other industry. And I can't see how this aligns with that.
Yeah. Well, you remember the old vapes that we used to have? We used to be huffing food.
Yeah, people had no clue how long those had been. Exactly.
None of us are dead.
Could have had a 4-year-old vape and still wouldn't have known the difference.
I can honestly say you cannot use we statements because the Sebastopolian Florida man has never huffed on a crude ass vape cart.
You ever had one of those open vapes?
Oh, come on, bro. I'm sure you have at some NCIA cannabis event or something. I'm sure you've been sitting over there.
That's why
sitting in one of those rooms.
I always brought a trademark Cannagar, something big, fat, loud with a thick gauge. It's amazing flower.
Yeah.
So
but you can't smoke inside the conference, Yarrow. So you're telling me that you didn't smoke the whole time at the conference?
They used to take a heavy pull of heavy metal and crude oil.
Exactly.
That's how I get.
Taste a little grape.
Big old dab of vitamin E acetate.
No, sir, never.
Rest in peace.
Oh man, that was fun. Thank you so much for covering that today, Rico. We're gonna roll right into a commercial. And we're gonna be right back.
How's it going, guys? Saman Razani coming to you from Green Street here with Jason Beck, smoking on the best weed in the world. Did you know that we have an audio-only version of our podcast available on Apple, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Spotify? Tune in now and check it out.
While they're still consumable, but they're past that date in a way that allows them the benefits of the robust write-off program. In which case, then I'm all for it, because PTSD doesn't give a fuck if your gummy is 7 months old.
Yeah, you hear PTSD don't give a F. Yarrow
It's like the honey
Kubrin.
badger. It's like the honey badger.
The honey badger. The money badger is what they call me. Coming up next.
Getting all that happy cabbage, huh?
Rocking us into a brand new year. The man, the myth, the legend, known for smoking the best weed in the world. But also, West Hollywood's most infamous cannabis tourism.
I'm the president again. I'm the president again this year, Rico, just so you know.
You got reelected?
I'm the president again this year, yeah.
I think there should be a recount. I heard the Smartmatic machines used in West Hollywood voting.
It was actually tabulation. It was funny because it was actually a unanimous vote.
I'm calling Linwood.
It was actually a unanimous vote.
I'm calling Linwood, and he's taking you to court. Y'all know who it is. Jason Beck.
Linwood is good for going to court, that's for sure. Oh, yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, everybody here on the West Coast. Man, oh, man, you guys. So, this is the start of a new year. Many people like to start new things and new things. And you know what? There's a new career popping up for people in Connecticut, you guys. Okay, because Connecticut is going to hire a cannabis watchdog whose salary would range from $88,700 to $161,600 a year, you guys. That's right. Pull out your applications because you have today off. Because Connecticut's Office of Healthcare Advocate is looking for a cannabis ombudsperson to monitor the medical marijuana industry in the state. The job offering the salary between $88,710 and $161,639 annually was posted on December 23rd, just before the 6-month mark of Public Act number 23 through 79, which the Connecticut General Assembly passed on June 26th. The law, an act concerning cannabis regulations called the creation of the ombudsperson office in Section 49. Interesting, they're calling him an ombudsman. The appointed individual must be familiar with the palliative use of marijuana and the medical cannabis system, the Act states, and the job posting accepting applications until January 23rd. Also states that have appointed ombudsmen must represent the interest of patients and caregivers and monitor and analyze the state's industry. The ombudsperson or ombudsman will also be responsible for recommending any changes to the development and implementation of federal, state, and local laws, regulations, and other government policies and actions concerning the health, safety, and welfare and rights of qualifying patients and caregivers. In quotes, we had to work with some of our partners at the Department of Administration Services, which oversees the human resources functions for the state, as well well as the Office of Policy and Management, which deals with making sure there's a budget for it and how much that person is going to pay, King said. Those details aren't spelled out in the June law. Creating an entirely new position, office, and job class took time and collaboration, King said. The law states that the ombudsman's office is the healthcare advocate's office for administrative purposes only. King said once appointed, the ombudsman would act outside the OHA. In quotes, it's technically a completely separate office from us, King said. While we have the authority to appoint the ombudsman, that person is really largely acting independent of anything that the Office of Healthcare Advocates does, he said. In that part, it is why the OHA was ideal for appointing the ombudsman. In quotes, my understanding is that there was an interest in having it placed or associated with an agency that has some independence from outside political pressures, King said. And because our office fits that description, they assigned us the responsibility of having some administrative oversight. Lou Rindaldi, a citizen cannabis activist and system engineer at Yale University in New Haven, said the 6-month gap between the law's passing and the job's posting was too delayed. In quotes, I would have liked to have seen it sooner rather than later, and I would also like to see it a little bit more publicly for the job posting, Rinaldi said. Rinaldi, who is publicly skeptical of the state's cannabis administration and quality testing on his LinkedIn profile, said he hopes the appointed ombudsperson brings passion to the role and holds the industry accountable. Wonder what that's going to mean. But Rinaldi's worried the appointment could bring controlled opposition or sound and fury signifying nothing, he said, quoting the Shakespearean Macbeth. But Zach's chief operating officer and cannabis company, Fine Fettle, said the position is a step in the right direction, and he's been the state's cannabis market and he's seen the state's cannabis market increase offerings from adult use customers over the past year. In quotes, medical market and patient populations have changed since adult use happened, Zach said, and according to retail sales data from the state, medical cannabis sales have been trending down since March, while adult use sales have increased month over month since the market opened this past January until November's most recently published data. Though Rinaldi said the 6-month lapse between the Publics Act passing the ombudsman posting was too long, Zach disagreed and said it takes time. In quotes, you need to create the job description, you need to post it online, you need to get it in the budget, it needs to be added to a team's budget, the Fine Fettle COO said. He also said, there's hopes that you go through even as a private company, right? If you decide, oh, we need to hire a retail manager, we don't post that job the next day, he says. Well. Connecticut's looking for an ombudsman. What do you guys think about this? Oh, Enrico has his Happy New Year cap on. Look at this. This guy's still turning up. Where's the champagne, Rico? What do y'all think about this?
Life in me, no place I turn but up, Jason.
Mm-hmm. I see. I can tell.
This is just a made-up position? Like, are you like a snitch from one side of the government to the other?
I mean, it's crazy, right?
I read this article 3 times. I read this article 3 times this morning, and I still don't really fully understand like where the ombudsman's power is best used, or is it just a position where it's just a title? And then
I feel like it's just a title. I feel like it's how
a broad salad.
Yeah, it's like practically doubled.
160.
Yeah, it's like practically doubled, bro. Like, what is going on? Like, you guys can't figure out what the job is worth, or like, are you looking for like someone with some certain type of experience, and based on that experience, they're gonna get the higher pay or the lower pay, or like, what is going on over here?
I don't know. They're just trying to be everything to everybody, kind of like Nikki Haley.
Oh boy, it's the warmonger. Chris Eggers, quick question for you. In all your time in law enforcement and you seeing different law enforcement postings, have you ever seen something with a wage gap this disparaging?
I have not. I have not. Oh, we're looking at double, right? I mean, like, I'm with you. Who we attract? Who we trying to attract here? How are we going to decide who's going to make 80 versus 160 something? I think it's all over the map. I mean, it's pretty telling right there.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very true. Very telling. I mean, this is crazy to me. But what else are we?
There's also, I mean, you know, obviously it's hard to hate against title role that includes the word "bud" in it. It's also hard to cast any wrongness with independent offices that are ideally designed to hold other stakeholders accountable. That wide range in salary is troubling because it doesn't seem to me that they would understand what are the most important qualifications and how to assign all their value to that within a government compensation structure. We've seen steady drumbeats of news that we've covered here on the show about important roles that get filled and then people are quickly exiting stage left in a variety of different markets. And so my hope would be not that we focus on the 6 months that it took to post up, but on what the process is where they're going to determine who's qualified to take this role so that there isn't turnover at an important position. And I'd like to see what their vision is in terms of the qualifications, who would earn 160 versus 80. And then my other hope would be that in an important role like this, if you have such a wide range of salary conversation, that we are really trying to find the most qualified person for the most amount of money and not trying to pick somebody at the lower end of the range merely because they're less experienced. It seems like these roles deserve to have very qualified people in those spots. And while it's great that they have a 2x rank,
Yarrow, I think it's pretty
$80,000
simple. I think it's pretty simple. If you are a white male, then you're going to be close to 180. And if you are black, brown, or woman, you're probably going to be closer to that 81,000.
Oh, man, come on, Rico. You're so cynical, bro. This is a wokey state, bro. This is a wokey state in Connecticut. You know, it's probably reversed. It's probably if you're white, you're going to get the 80,000.
But it doesn't matter because you're probably like 200,000 bonuses.
I mean, hey, did you ever see that movie where it was like some like super elite special forces, but they weren't like really special forcemen. They were more like mythical mystery seekers or whatever.
Yeah, the Avengers.
It's something like that. It wasn't the Avengers, the movie that I'm thinking of, but it was something like that. It was. But I will tell you this is very interesting because I feel like this name just sounds like they're trying to make some superhero character, an ombudsman.
Ombudsman.
Yes, ombudsman. This is the one.
Yeah, we can see the qualifications that they're prioritizing. We understand whether they fully comprehend the role in the system, and it would be nice to see that they understand what this role, what those qualifications should be. Should it be someone with a public administration degree? Maybe. Should it be somebody with previous regulatory experience? Maybe. Should it be someone who has a legacy understanding of an industry that is now trying to be regulated? Absolutely. How do they put that forth in terms of qualifications? And if they do that, then to my cohort point, Rico, if they put some emphasis on leg experience, that's a colorblind way of prioritizing those communities probably have more experience than not. Ultimately, if you're going to be regulating the industry, understanding the origin of the industry before industry pretty darn important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to the first ombudsman the job as a she, whatever the hell that means.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
They get going over there. Right,
Say it
Jason?
again.
You good?
I'm sorry, I couldn't
You
hear
all
you, bro. I couldn't hear you. I apologize. What'd you say?
I said, you good? We going into halftime? We going into commercial?
Oh shit!
you
No,
right?
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We're trying. We had a little problem with our internet this morning over here, and so we're just working through a couple technical difficulties, making sure that the best user experience is possible for everyone watching at home. So I do apologize. Coming up next, it is the Sebastopol Sage. That's right. He's known as the Florida Man of Santa Rosa. It is Mr. Yarrow Kubrin, who does cannabis, real estate, and cannabis and real estate. He can put two and two together and make a PB&J. That's right. It is the Sebastopol Sage, Mr. Yarrow Kubrin.
Good morning. High-at-9 News viewers. Welcome to 2024. Super excited to kick off the new year, especially being a part of this exciting daily news show. My article today is one that's near and dear to my heart because it's about free speech. So, without further ado, this is Yarrow Kubrin, High-at-9 News, Monday morning. Federal lawsuit challenges Mississippi's ban on marijuana advertising, citing free speech rights. If you go to Walgreens and fill a prescription for an opioid and Walgreens can advertise, why can't True Source and other cannabis dispensaries and cultivators in Mississippi? Mississippi's medical cannabis advertising ban is preventing a small dispenser from attracting customers. True Source owner Clarence Cowcroft is arguing in a federal lawsuit that casts the law as a violation of his free speech. Though medical marijuana is now legal for Mississippians with qualifying conditions and a medical cannabis card, state law prohibits dispensary owners and cultivators from advertising cannabis products. It's a daunting task to stay in the industry when you can't advertise, Cowcroft told the Mississippi Free Press on December 8th. It's legal. If they allow you to get licensed, they should allow you to promote your business. Cowcroft owns True Source, the state's first black-owned medical cannabis dispensary located in the Southeast Industrial Zoning area of Olive Branch, Mississippi. Cowcroft and his dispensary filed a lawsuit on November 14th against officials in charge of the regulation of the Mississippi State Department of Health, the Mississippi Department of Revenue, and the Mississippi Alcohol Beverage Control Bureau. To open a medical cannabis shop in the state, a person must apply for a dispensary license, register for a sales tax permit, and pay thousands of dollars in fees. A person must have a medical cannabis card over at the age of 21 to enter the dispensary. The fight was, okay, we're paying you all these taxes, we're abiding by all the rules that you have set forth, and all we're asking for is simple. Allow us to advertise. We're going to increase your tax rate as a state, Cowcroft said. True Source relies on its website, word of mouth, and signs posted on the building for advertising. Cowcroft cannot advertise his dispensary or its website on any other advertising medium. The owner said many customers would not have known about the store if they had not been by area. It's not just me in my location that cannot advertise, he said. It's every location in Olive Branch. It's every dispensary in DeSoto County and all 80 counties, Cowcroft said. A no-win situation for the cannabis industry. The Institute for Justice, IJ, a national libertarian non-law is representing Clarence Cowcroft in the lawsuit. One of the Cowcroft's attorneys, Catherine Marquez, said IJ looks at commercial free speech regulations and advertising laws through the lens of the First Amendment and how different regulations on advertising really hamper people's business. What's really important here is that Mississippi already regulates things like advertising to children and making false medical claims. So we think these regulations make sense, she told the Mississippi Free Press on December 8th. The state of Mississippi can keep that. What it can't do is blatantly say you can't advertise at all. When he and his family opened True Source, Cowcroft bought billboards in the North Mississippi area to advertise his dispensary, but he had to lease the spaces to other businesses, including a casino that could legally showcase their products to the public. The business owner said the lawsuit and subsequent reporting have brought in new customers each day, but he is still not reaching his fullest potential customer base, despite about 30,000 Mississippians having a medical cannabis card. Before the lawsuit, he said he was seeing about 15 to 20 patients a day, most being return customers. But now about 20 to 30 people stop by True Source each day to pick up their medical cannabis products, Cowcroft said. The medical cannabis advertising ban does not only affect dispensary owners, he said. If dispensaries cannot sell the products on the shelves, they will not buy as much from cultivators, who in turn will also lose money. It's a no-win situation for the cannabis industry of Mississippi, Cowcroft said. He said that investing in the Mississippi medical cannabis industry has cost dispensary owners, cultivators, and testing companies millions of dollars in the name of helping patients, all while their owners learn how to operate a type of business that is brand new in the state. You become your own entrepreneur in a business that has criminalized so many people. And now, since it's legal in the state, why not, Cocroft said. Congress passed and former President Barack Obama signed the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment in 2014, banning the U.S. Department of Justice from spending federal funds to prosecute medical marijuana operations in states that have medical cannabis programs. The federal government does not enforce medical marijuana laws state by history. Medication companies, casinos, and strip clubs can advertise their products and services to the entire state, but he cannot advertise his dispensary or medical cannabis products. If you go to Walgreens and you fill a prescription for an opioid, and Walgreens can advertise, why can't True Source, he asked. This is Yarrow Kubrin, High at 9 News, Monday morning, January 1st, 2024. I'd like to know what you guys think.
I like this lawsuit.
I am a big skeptic when it comes to using the courts and lawsuits. And typically the lawsuits we're seeing are people whining and complaining or suing each other. This is a perfect example of why the courts exist and why they're a fantastic venue to get some sober resolution on regulations that don't make any sense. And I'm so proud of this guy, as well as the organization that picked up this case. And what I especially love is he can't advertise, but the lawsuit itself is a form of advertising. So win, lose, or draw, he has created massive awareness for his dispensary. And I'm so excited and can't wait for the courts to tell Mississippi that their rules are a broad overreach that are inconsistent with the Constitution.
Isn't this the same guy that we covered a while ago that was filing the same lawsuit about the billboards?
Is it?
I think this might be.
I forget. I was too busy applying to be the ombudsman of Connecticut.
I'm not mad at that, bro. I'm not mad at that, bro. Get that 160,000 a year.
I saw an ad on that for on back page.
I just feel like if you're named the ombudsman, you need to be a comic book character at Comic-Con.
Omnibudman.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to have a logo on your chest.
Exactly.
Sure. And so most regulators have a bullseye on their back instead of a logo on their chest. So that would still be.
Well, they do have a logo on their chest because they generally wear around a badge that has their ID with a logo for what agency they work for.
To the lanyard as a uniform.
See, Chris knew that. Chris, I saw that, Chris. Yeah. 21 Jump Street on that ass.
Yes.
So back to this article. I mean, look. This notion that they can't communicate to the public through conventional channels. Show me the public policy rationale for this. That's all.
Yeah, yep. and there is none. And cannabis companies nationwide should be able to advertise their businesses. Period.
I agree with that.
I'm sorry. It sounds like both of you are taking a common sense approach to this topic, and that's crazy.
Tell me about it. Isn't it crazy? Their common sense is winning.
And you're airing this, Jason. This is wild.
Yeah, look at 2024. We're turning a new leaf, if you will.
I'll tell you what, man. We need some propaganda. Okay, so we're gonna go to a commercial. And we're gonna come right back.
Maybe get one of those Disney
you got something to say, Yarrow, real quick? One more?
Yeah, so I did a little bit of research on the organization that picked up this case because I wanted to see if they had a particular bias or they were just tokenizing this gentleman and his issue.
Tokenizing him, huh?
Wasn't disclosed. And I was pleased to see that this organization has been around for decades and decades and does have a track record of pushing libertarian issues. Sometimes the word libertarian is actually code for conservative. But in this case, it does look like they are very much just supporting free speech and state rights. And so I'm very, very hopeful that this gentleman prevails.
And remember, libertarianism is anarchy.
Oh, boy. Oh, geez Louise. You know, on that, we're going to a commercial. We're going to be right back. The Control Tower from Highly Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And with the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The Control Tower from Highly Educated. All right, stop whatever you're doing. Do us a favor, do yourself a favor, and YouTube a favor, and go ahead and smash that like button. Also, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel if you have not subscribed to the channel already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show you can read on our website at www.highat9news.com.
I'm Jason Beck, and this is Smoky Vanilla. And if you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to get yourself a stretch and smoke with Smoky Vanilla.
That's right, baby. I'm Smoky Vanilla with my background in kinesiology. I'm a sports massage therapist and stretch coach. I focus mostly on athletes who have chronic pain or injury due to their sport, or the legends of the chronic in the game, baby.
Oh, yeah, you know what it is. We just stretched, and now we're gonna smoke, because you know what it is.
That's right. I love intuitively creating a session based on the individual I'm working with. We'll go through a few assessments, look at the past health history, injury, or anything that's still affecting you today, and create a customized session just for you. Let's go.
Sure.
All right, so up next, we got a fellow dope dad who's a former police officer, traded in his issue gun and badge for a blunt and a notepad. It's my absolute pleasure to talk about and bring this former athlete to the stage as well. Chris Eggers got an important one for us today.
Is that because he was a track
Thank you,
star?
Rico. Happy New Year. I was going to say, Rico, I appreciate you recognizing track as a sport and classifying me as an athlete who participated in that sport. Thank you.
Especially long distance runners, man. You guys are some of the most important fools on the team. You guys put up so many points at the track meets and everything.
Is that from being a narcotics officer that you're calling him a track star?
Yeah. He's running the streets.
Exactly.
Well, my article today comes out of Oakland, California, a story that many people are likely familiar with given the media coverage around it. The particular article I'm going to read from is from Fox KTVU News, and the headline reads, Oakland police officer shot and killed in the line of duty. This was last Friday. An Oakland officer was responding to a burglary at what has only been described in various media outlets as a cannabis facility in the 400 block of the Embarcadero in Oakland, California. I have some knowledge about this story in this case, but I'm going to go ahead and just read a little bit from this article. Sources have confirmed with KTV News at least 2 suspects have been arrested in the early morning burglary that preceded the death of an Oakland officer. Oakland police sources tell KTV News that multiple arrests have been made in connection with the burglary. They say that they expect more arrests will be made, but at this time there's no official word that the person who fired the gun that killed Officer Lee has been arrested. Lee was killed early Friday when intercepting a burglary at a cannabis dispensary around 4:45 a.m. in the 400 block of Embarcadero, that's near 9th Avenue. He was then pronounced dead at Highland Hospital in Oakland at 8:44 a.m. City leaders, city departments across the state have shared condolences over Lee's killing. A little bit of background about this incident. Officer Lee had approximately 4 years on and was assigned to a specialized unit. He was responding to a burglary, and from information that has been reported and information from folks that I know within law enforcement, this particular facility was broken into and burglarized around 1 a.m. And then media outlets had reported that law enforcement secured the facility, and that can mean different things, and happy to go down that rabbit hole if anyone cares to. But then the well, they're calling it a dispensary in this article, but I'm not really sure if that's the case, and I'm not gonna put out any official word. But they then responded back to the facility when it was being hit a second time, and that's when Officer Lee responded. He was working in plain clothes in an unmarked car, and as suspects fled, they fired multiple shots, striking Officer Lee. That's the story that I'm sharing today. This obviously brings up a lot of different conversations and a lot of different viewpoints. I'm thankful that we have this platform to discuss it. I'm thankful that we have correspondents that have different points of views and different optics around the story. I'm also thankful to Jason Beck for reaching out and allowing me to contribute today and share the story. I am former OPD. I worked there from 2008 to about 2014, and then I went to San Francisco PD, but I didn't know Officer Lee myself. A lot of former OPD officers that I reached out to do and did know him. It's reported that Officer Lee was from Saigon originally and then moved into Oakland. He's actually from Oakland. And this is the first Oakland officer lost since Mark Dunnigan, John Heggie, Irv Romans, and Dan Sakai back in 2009.
Man,
It's a sad story, man. Glad we got to hear it from your perspective.
Yeah.
Too, Chris. But there's levels, and like layers to this one, man. You know, an Asian immigrant protecting a black business, going down in the line of duty, and we hear a lot about the inaction of police officers, especially in Northern California, and then you have a story like this. It really hits home, man. So yeah, big love out to the police officers' family and friends out there in the whole Oakland community. I know everybody's reeling from this one.
100%. And one has to wonder too what this is going to do to the overall morale in the police force when it comes to enforcing. Like, this is the first time that they actually, to my knowledge, that they actually chased a suspect from any of these types of cannabis facilities and any of these types of burglaries that have been menacing the cannabis industry for a number of years now. And so, Chris, I mean, it has to like lower the morale. I mean, I think in that article or in another article, the police chief was saying, hey, you know what, City of Oakland, you should probably get rid of all of your cannabis businesses because we can't protect them.
I've always said a couple of things to respond to your question. Yeah, morale is going to be affected here. But again, I think I've said this before multiple times, and I really do believe that we have a retail theft problem in the country. We have a retail burglary problem in the country. We have a retail robbery problem in the country. It is not specific to cannabis. Near Lake Merritt, a 7-Eleven guard was recently shot and killed, armed guard. So, people are targeting businesses with things within them that they consider valuable. I mean, even the French Laundry was hit years back, right? So if it's valuable, people will come for it, period. This is, one of my hesitations to share stories around crime within the cannabis community is I don't want the naysayers to be able to pick up and say, aha, see, cannabis brings in all these problems. I don't, I'm a subject matter expert in cannabis security, and I don't believe that to be true. These facilities have, various requirements that other retail businesses, commercial businesses don't have, and they have, specifically, let's look at security camera systems that law enforcement absolutely does rely on to investigate crimes unrelated to cannabis. I give hit and run as an example all the time, and I encourage cannabis businesses to keep a log anytime they interact with law enforcement and provide value to them. So, that's part of my hesitation with sharing stories around crime and things like that in the industry. However, it is a prevalent problem in this industry as well and needs to be addressed. And there's multiple ways to do that, in my opinion. My hope is that municipalities will take a hard look at how they spend and distribute grant dollars that are meant to bring value to these small business owners, period, that are struggling on multiple fronts. Respectfully, some folks struggle with understanding where to spend money, and what's a good investment. People are not security experts and they don't know. And so I've seen people spend, copious amounts of money and it bring no value. I've also seen municipalities be irresponsible with grant funds and not only how they distribute them, but the barriers to entry that they create in order to just get your hands on the funds. And so, there's a lot to unpack here, and, we've got 10 minutes left in the show, and I don't want to bogart the conversation, but I will just say again, my hope is that municipalities really take a hard look at the resources that they have and how they can distribute those resources to business owners to prevent these types of things from happening.
So I'd like to take a quick little stab at this. So first of all, my deepest condolences not only to the Oakland Police Department, the Oakland community, Tuan Lee, his family, but also to the cannabis industry, which we like to say cannabis has never killed anybody. But here is the byproduct of a regulated industry that is now become systemically targeted for property crimes. And so there's no winners in this. It is true that there has been cries from the industry around law enforcement generally being under responsive to some of these property crimes. And here's a perfect example of why, if you were a law enforcement line staff, the number one rule is to come home alive. It is also true that there doesn't seem to be a state database, and I've heard this from the police in Santa Rosa and the chief there, that these crimes tend to be committed by professionals, roving bands of marauders that go from market to market, and that the methods for these crimes are not being accumulated at a state level to allow local law enforcement to tap in and to understand trends that might affect their areas. The other thing that I think is a real problem is we don't have any visibility about where the money that is realized as local tax revenue, where it's being spent in respects to loss prevention and law enforcement. And so when you have clusters of cannabis businesses like you have in Oakland, like you have in Santa Rosa, like you have in Los Angeles, if we can't see that the tax revenue that's being collected in those markets is being spent on loss prevention in those markets, that's a real problem. And so not having a state repository, a database that's facilitated through the DCC and that supports local law enforcement shows us that there's ample room for improvement. And hopefully we can avoid things like this ever happening again. It's also, in the same breath, something that newer adult use markets need to be paying attention to. This is a mature market issue, and if we can take the know-how and the painful lessons that have resulted from some of these incidents, and we can apply those to markets that haven't yet experienced this kind of loss prevention, I think that could be a real valuable thing that California can lead the charge on.
A lot of great points there, Yarrow. And the one thing I do want to say is there's always a risk that comes with that job. Also, you might go home or you might not make it home. The same goes for folks that sign up, get enlisted, and join the military. So I hate to, I'm not trying to minimize anything about what happened, but on the flip side of that, like, it's part of the job too, right? If when you're donning that gun and badge, like, there is a chance that you might not go home. You might not see your family again. So just want to give out some big love to everybody who has the courage to, put on that uniform. And I don't think that I don't think it should ever be a morale buster or something to put down any morale when you choose to operate as a police officer. So I always kind of cringe when I hear like, oh, I'm going to kill morale. This is why cops don't go in and do their job. Like, that's what your job is to do. Your job is to serve and protect. And
I agree with that.
Absolutely.
I agree with that.
Put on that uniform.
And I would say,
When you
Rico,
go into this, signing up for that. That's what you're committing to when you go into law enforcement or any kind of public service job. Of course, this is really, and by the way, sorry I'm late, but it's New Year's Day and it was Luke's first one out. And so we were
turn up
incredibly late.
Yeah.
Slept right through the alarm.
Yeah.
It's the fancy wardrobe.
Yes.
I like it.
But I'm here. So happy New Year, everybody.
I feel like the shirt or the robe you have on matches my hat.
Yes, it actually would go perfectly and cover up my bed head, but whatever. Anyway, first of all, yes, condolences. This is like a horrible, horrible situation to have happen. I dare I say it though, I think that these kinds of dynamics, that kind of tragedy, you can have positive experiences and you learn and you grow and you can make different choices for the future. And while many people in our industry have been significantly impacted by negative interactions with law enforcement on behalf of this plant, it's also time for us to be doing some healing and to start bridging the gap between law enforcement and our industry. And I think that this gentleman who was at his day of work as a police officer and came to, aid of one of our comrades in our industry, that's a sign of a law enforcement officer recognizing us as a community member and wanting to do his job, right? And so part of our job in building this new wave of the industry is to find our pathway to building bridges with people who have been on the opposite side of the fence with us for a very long time. Because when tragedies like this happen, the community needs to come together and not be pointing fingers and blaming. And law enforcement someday will hopefully be able to step back and say, no, these cannabis business operators, they're great community members. They donate to charities. They support us. They provide us camera footage when there's victims that have been victimized within the vicinity of their business to help us solve cases. We do that as a community. As business operators, most of us are incredibly ethical and want to improve where we live. And I think it's just time for us to really start bridging that gap and help law enforcement see the good in what we're doing, because there needs to stop being this us-them mentality.
Yeah. And you know what? It's interesting that you say that, Mandy, because I'm with you on that, and I think law enforcement needs to do that too. Because in the chat we have joined us Keith Healy. He's the owner of Fig Farms, and he actually has a full operation in Oakland. And he says, I've paid Oakland taxes. I've paid over $2 million in private security. The Oakland Police Union president calling for cannabis businesses to be closed is unfair. And he says the lack of police response has created this type of level of violence. What do you think about that, Chris?
Yeah, cannabis businesses, I won't speak for, all of them, right, or all of the operators, but many people feel like they're on an island and that, law enforcement is not coming, and that is based on data. That is based on historical non-response. And that's not a knock on law enforcement, but the fact of the matter is OPD specifically is incredibly low in the amount of officers they have. In my opinion, respectfully, I think the quality of police officer has drastically gone down. I saw that in my career, and I can speak to that as an expert because I was a field training officer. I completed daily observation reports with new recruits and, was to some respect like the gatekeeper to get into the department, although not making the final decision, which was frustrating because there was folks that, got into the department that I don't feel should have been. So there's, again, a whole bunch of layers to unpack here, and there's a whole bunch of different topics to sort of spin off of that I think are incredibly important, and it's just a lot to unpack here. So I feel let me just say this too, though. Mandy, I agree with everything you said, and I think that it's a two-way street. I think it's especially on law enforcement to come to the table. I think that in my experience within the cannabis industry, operators are willing to have dialogue with cops. They're willing to show up and have meetings. They're willing to, come to the table. Law enforcement is an incredibly encapsulated industry, and that's one of the frustrating parts that I found working within that cog. I think it's important that, law enforcement comes to the table, is open-minded, and understands that, listen, the world is changing, laws are changing, these businesses are allowed to be here. Again, real quick example of that, I was a footbeat officer in San Francisco when a new dispensary opened up. I walked by, had nodded to the manager, who had nodded back. I walked up, shook his hand, gave him my card, and said, I kind of kick it over here most days. If you need anything, let me know. He's like, hey, you want to come in and check it out? I said, absolutely. Can I? He's like, I don't know. Can you? And I was like, I don't have a warrant. Like, we were just kind of teasing with each other. He's like, come on in and check out my shop. Right. And you're a new retail business on a footbeat. You're on a piece of Market Street that I'm a footbeat officer. I leave that dispensary, and my sergeant's in the middle of the street in his parked car in park. And he calls me over and he says, stay out of those places. And I said, no, not only no, but if that's how you really feel, shoot me an email, Sarge. Shoot me an email, shoot me a text, something that I can see and hold up, because you're going to make me stand at Gap the day after Thanksgiving all day long, and it's ridiculous, so there is a bias within law enforcement. I'm not speaking for the industry as a whole, but, these are just things that I think people eventually need to sit down and talk about. And I appreciate Mandy's perspective, and I think it goes both ways. I think that law enforcement needs to come to the table. I'm not saying that they're not, but I've yet to meet a cannabis operator that's like, I want some help, but I'm unwilling to, have the convo. I've never met that person.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since we had these rash of break-ins that started about 3 years ago, Oakland has been on the map as one of these primary targets. And we have covered stories like this. We've covered what happened to that cannabis business owner in Santa Cruz recently. And since then, Grant Palmer down in Santa Cruz has also been hit. And so the loss of life is never justifiable, but this notion that this market has become a mecca for crime for cannabis businesses, there is some culpability with the lack of robust responses in the past. And again, if we're not utilizing the tax resources from the areas that do have clusters of cannabis businesses to staff those law enforcement to levels that will allow them to respond to those property crimes, that's a big misuse of those funds to begin with.
Yeah,
absolutely. I would just like to quickly add too. I think it's partly on the industry to understand that the circumstances are changing. Law enforcement's not showing up, so we can't continue to address security the way that we have the last 20 years. We need to. I'll just briefly say we need to lean into technology. We need to be open to chasing a different carrot. We need to understand that, the alarms, cameras, and guards are not necessarily the only answer out there. And it's important to, also from an industry perspective, address and understand that the times are changing and that there's a better way to do things. And certainly understand that, law enforcement may not show up, period.
Mm-hmm. And I think, oh, go ahead, Mandy.
I'm sorry. I want to talk.
Go for it.
I wanted to just also point out, though, that the city of Oakland and Emeryville, which is adjacent to Oakland, are like the top two most crime infected cities, I think, in the entire West Coast, but definitely in California
per capita.
And that's data from this year.
What two places are those, Mandy? I apologize, I missed that.
Emeryville and Oakland.
Emeryville and Oakland. They're right next to each other.
Oakland is right in there as well. They're like, I want to say those three are like neck and neck with each other for the highest crime rates. So it shouldn't be too much of a surprise that we're hearing about more of these instances coming out of Oakland. There's a high crime rate happening there already. I think a signing salary for anyone to join the Oakland PD is like $200,000. I mean, you're basically signing your life away, but Jesus, like
that's still lower middle class in San Fran.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, I would push that out there because I mean that is the situation. It's probably one of the most dangerous cities in California.
I feel like for operators that operate within the city of Oakland, they need to go to their city council and demand that the city council force the police department to treat cannabis businesses in their response time the exact same way that they would as an elevated response like a bank robbery. The city of West Hollywood has done that since its inception. Okay, and let me tell you something: when people have tried to break in during hours or even after hours, that people are getting caught. Okay, there was one guy that got caught.
I've seen law enforcement get dispatched to sit out front of Planned Parenthood to make sure the picketers don't get too invasive. But like now we're talking about actual gun violence on site at these facilities that have lots of staff and lots of money and lots of product. And it's just, I mean, it could be the same thing if you were a pharmaceutical company and somebody trying to target you, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, how often do pharmaceutical companies get
well, they don't because they take insurance and that's a no cash transaction past safe banking.
Hey, Chris, is there a way that
drugs are worth a lot?
Is there a way that police can be incentivized legally incentivized for good behavior? If we're actually responding to stuff and like doing a great job, like I know like in the the mainstream world of capitalism, in sales, like you have incentives, for doing a great job. Is there any way that we can like legally, without pushing favoritism one way or the other, incentivize cops?
They do. They measure
doing
response time to calls, and so there are metrics from a public policy perspective, and so the question I think for Oakland isn't what's the response time. It's are the responses commensurate with the threat, and have the responses been such that they extinguish the incentive for these professionals to continue to hit these locations in Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, and it is categorized by threat, and that's what I mean about leaning into technology. Currently, I'd say that most operators today, wake up in the middle of the night with an alarm call, right, from some dispatch center somewhere, and then they're on their phone looking at their cameras, and that's the typical way that I think a lot of operators that I hear about get woken up in the middle of the night if their facility's targeted, and those calls are categorized as priority 3 or a C. A or a 1 being the top priority. And so it's important to, again, I think, lean into technology to decrease police response times. In parallel to that, being able to provide real-time data. And that in and of itself will, I think, categorize calls to a degree that are higher priority. But in addition to that, that'll directly decrease police response times. And, I think a lot of, at least speaking to my clients, they just want the cops to show up, right? Cherries and berries. They want lights and sirens. They want to keep the offenders on the outside of the facilities, period. And there's a way to do that. And so I think it is important, though, and this is not an excuse for law enforcement, but calls are categorized by threat level based on the information. And typically cannabis facilities are relying on alarm systems to get that call out, and that will typically be a low priority call.
Exactly.
Did you just say cherries and berries?
Cherries and berries, bro.
Cherries and berries.
Yep.
I'm thinking berries and scaries. I don't even know what cherries and berries are. Where did this term come up? Help me. I was 10 years old.
It's one of those.
Too young to know. We can't tell you yet.
It's just one of those 12 special inside 12 comments. You know what I mean?
You and your Gen Z cohorts, Yarrow.
Mm-hmm. Chris, I have one more like serious question in regards with this. And I just wonder how much of this has to do with, at the same time, and I don't want to come across as being against criminal justice reform, because I'm not. But the reality of is that some of these policies that have been put in place, as far as not prosecuting people for these what they call small crimes or whatnot, has led to a lot of this. All right. So for a commercial building, breaking into a commercial building in the state of California, do you know what happens if you get caught for the first time? You don't even go to jail. Okay? You get informal probation. I don't even think you go to jail until the 3rd time that you get caught. And after the 6th time is when you do up to a county year. And now this is the stuff that has to change within the policies, because otherwise it's a known thing on the streets that you can just go and rob any commercial business and there's basically zero punishment, because look, you can go ahead 10, 20 spaces, and if you don't get caught, you're winning.
Well, Jason, the reason why I'm against those, harsher punishments and everything like that, man, because you take a step back and look at the broader data. Like, black and brown communities get hit the hardest, period. You're going to have more black and brown people in jail for like 10, 20 years for breaking into a commercial building. So I think while we do need
I don't have a problem with people getting 10 or 20 years for breaking in commercial businesses.
Yeah, I think we should have firmer penalties. But on the flip side of that, this is indicative of a greater problem when it comes to the economy. These people that are doing these crimes do not have opportunity to make money to actually survive in these places.
Let me tell you something, bro. The people that are doing these crimes are trained professionals who are highly, highly trained in this. Okay, it's not just
they're trained at this point.
Hold on, it's not just like the kids.
At this point, where they get started from, though.
It's not just like the kids that run into CVS and steal stuff, whatever they can grab. Okay, that's a totally different type of thing, and that goes into more.
Where do they get started? They have to start somewhere, right? How do they get recruited into that cohort? Because they didn't have opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I mean, I'm not. It could be that. It could be they didn't have dads. It could be a lot of different things. You can't just attribute it to one thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It has to be a multi-pronged action taken by the community. You can't just have like harsher penalties. You have to have more opportunities for the people. And
I agree with more opportunities, but you got to have harsher penalties. I'm all for more opportunities in communities. I'm all for that, but there have to be real consequences for real crime.
Let me frame this for a second, Jason. I think what you're touching upon is this notion that because we have deprioritized law enforcement and consequence for property crimes, especially in California, that we've gone away from a culture of accountability.
Exactly.
And I don't disagree with you. And I think what Rico is trying to say is that while the laws on the books seem fair and equitable, the disproportionate enforcement of some of these crimes or these property theft enforcement against those crimes has still meant that these things are being borne on the backs of the poorest and often blackest and brownest communities, right? And so you've got these two separate things that aren't necessarily contradictory. And so Oakland has had issues before it had cannabis theft. And Oakland law enforcement respectfully has had issues before it had under responsiveness to cannabis crimes in the last 3 years, which we cannot say is entirely attributable specifically to Oakland. And I do not mean this as a disrespect to any of our men and women in blue or to the Oakland Police Department. But if you do your research on that organization itself, there's a reason why it was under federal receivership, and it is not exactly an organization that can say it has clean hands in the way that it has operated as an organization and the way in which it has interacted with the constituents it was tasked with policing. So there's a lot of room for improvement on a lot of different levels. And what Rico is trying to say is that the young men and women who tend to become these professional thieves, they start somewhere. And that starting somewhere, if we separate this conversation from poverty and the wealth gap in this country, then we are losing sight of the bigger picture, which is that people who have opportunity don't tend to rip and run and create crime. It doesn't mean that the crime is justifiable, but it does mean that there is a deeper societal issue and people are not necessarily given the opportunity to improve themselves. And it's not a level playing field in that respect.
Right on.
Great comment, Yarrow. Absolutely.
It's a great conversation, though, man. And I know we're way over time, but it's a great way to start. With these good conversations on our team, is a great way to start the new year, man. So thank you guys for all your comments there from all angles. You know, this is what the cannabis industry is all about. You know, right, left, center, outside of everything. You know, dads, moms. I try to get her.
Yeah.
To not be pushing my buttons over here.
Get him, Zozo.
This is why she's usually not on the show.
Just push mute, Zozo.
You want to say Happy New Year? But thank you all for joining us for another episode, the first of 2024 of High 9 News. You can catch us live weekdays, 9 a.m. Pacific, high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our super fans showing love, getting their comments posted live on the big screen. You want to say something? What do you want to say?
Happy Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Happy Merry Christmas, too.
Yeah.
And Kwanzaa?
Merry Christmas, sweetheart.
Yeah, big shout out to our vetted correspondents tuning in from all over, bringing us much needed variety, perspective, and your respected opinions to the table. To our production team, Cloud Media partners, our sponsors, keeping the lights on, our AV struggles to a minimum, and Happy New Year to you, Adam, back there, doing the damn thing with your feathered hair. Brushes.
Yeah.
All right. So, as always, Cannabis Sativa L, the reason we show up to read these stories every single day. Thank you, too. It has been Monday, January 1st. Cover your mouth. Cover your mouth. Got to teach these kids, man. Got to teach these kids.
2024.
2024. Breaking in the new year. The show's over. We've all been blessed with the top industry headlines. Hope it's enough for you to put your pipe and smoke at least until tomorrow. Chris Eggers, you got the outro today, man. Start us off with something fresh.
Sure, sweet man. Be kind to one another. Appreciate you guys.
Yes.
The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us.